Hi guys, welcome to episode 6. We got a sponsor. These diagrams you see here and the list is measurements for the chassis and the subframe mounting points for the MG/TF and the original Metro. I'm just popping these up on the screen for you so you can actually see them up close. It doesn't really show up on the video. You've got the image with the measuring points, and then you've got the measuring points correlating to the data on the sheets. Massive thanks to Roberts Automotive for this. They do all sorts of things to do with measuring equipment, chassis straightening, all the stuff that Black Hawk do and used to do, including back to the P188, even though that is a bit more difficult to get hold of now. But if you're in this sort of situation where you're doing a project and you're using other stuff from another car, it's really handy to have this sort of data. Or if you're in the body repair trade and you need measuring data, or you need your Shark or your P188 serviced or checked over, they're always on hand to sort it out. I'll put a link in the description for you to go and check them out. I can use these to measure the width and length, so I know when I get these subframes mounted properly, I can measure up and make sure they're in the right place. This cover here, I'm not telling you what this is yet. You'll have to guess down in the comments, because it's going to be episode 7. It goes hand in hand with this piece of aluminium. You can probably guess what that is. The main thing to get done this episode, this subframe is too low. I need to bring it back up to the original TF mounting points. And to do that, I've got to pull those mounts back out the back, lift that up, put them back in to where I took them out from originally. It just sits too low in the car. The center line of the axle, when there's no weight on the car, is below the edge of the sill. So when I get it in and get the car sat down on its wheels, it's probably going to be about that high off the floor, and that's just way too high. So we want to bring it down so we've got around about 100 millimeters of ground clearance with everything in the car. We'll get these undone, get the subframe dropped down, get them back in the right place, lift it back up. It looks like I'm going to have to do some more cutting this side and this side to give these turrets a bit more room to come up further. Then I've got to cut the bottoms off these chassis rails, because the front of the subframe also needs to come up further, because at the moment the caster is just in the wrong place. It's miles away from where it needs to be. So this front bit of the subframe needs to come up higher. So we'll get on with that, get that done. With all these measurements, I'm probably going to get something mounted on the wall over there when all that crap's out of the way, so I can put these on, get them pinned up to the wall, so I can do various markings, mark the measurements down that I'm actually taking off the car, so I can correlate everything back and forth further down the line. Oh yeah, before I go any further, I know I said last episode, or not last episode, episode 4, that I didn't want to take that front cross member off. I had to do it to get this subframe up, but I had the measurements to make sure that the chassis legs didn't move. So when I got the subframe off, I checked the measurements, they didn't move at all. I'm quite surprised at that, because these front chassis rails are not very strong usually. The one thing I have got, which is going to be really good, is a tripod. And that means I can do this. So I can take you guys around with me. Hopefully that's the right angle. It probably won't be, knowing my luck. Put you back a bit further actually. Hopefully that's the right angle. So it's this bracket here that I need to move back down here. And I don't think... might just about work. Let's have a look. Let me get a bar on this. Yes. I'm just going to go and get a spacer for this. Bring the subframe forward. Right. So I've got these couple of washers that I can put here. I've got two of these for both sides, which is going to space the entire subframe forwards about 6 mil, which will give me a little bit more wheel to inner arch clearance. So when I run the bigger wheels, I shouldn't have too many problems with turning the wheel into the arch, because the 16s are a bit close. I'm going to be running 17s, they're about 30 mil bigger in diameter, so it should alleviate any clearance issues I have with this, hopefully. I'm going to try and undo these 4 nuts, see if I can just rotate the steering rack around a little bit, give me a bit more clearance. Right, going to have to cut that bulkhead, no choice, but I'm going to do it with snips because it's so thin. Well, that's the subframe, I think, sorted. It still needs to come up at the front, which means I need to cut some more out of this. This is only really a finisher panel anyway, so there's no strength in it, and the chassis legs haven't moved. So I need to trim about that much more off the chassis legs to get this subframe to come up, to get the caster right. That will also rotate the steering rack, because at the moment the steering rack input is pointing up like that, which isn't good. I can't actually rotate the rack because it's the way it's fixed. The front side of the steering rack is flat against the subframe, so I can't rotate it. So I've got to bring this up enough to get that to rotate back, get the caster to sit right, and hopefully that'll be it. I've started making some brackets for the subframe, so I can weld them to the chassis rails so I know nothing's going to move and the subframe's going to stay in place. I can take this jack out then. I'll get that done in the next episode, because I've run out of time tonight. Once this is all fixed in place, I'm going to start putting the pedal box in. I'm going to use an MGTF pedal box for now. Get it in so I can at least get some brakes on it on the front, and maybe get the steering column in as well. Again, I'm going to use an MGTF steering column. I may change that in future, but I think I'm going to stick with it. Thanks again for all the support, as ever. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to leave a comment on what you think is going on with this under here. In the next episode, you'll find out. It's going to be a longer one than this. There's a lot more detail going to be in it, because it is quite an intricate thing. There's a lot of measuring, there's a lot of messing around to do. It's going to be a bit fiddly, but we should be able to get it done, and I hope you enjoy it. I'll see you in the next one.